What's up, guys? Patrick here at alldayeat.com, and today we are going to be making Buri Daikon, which is a simmered Daikon radish with yellowtail, also known as buri in Japanese. And hello for all the replay watchers out there. Thanks for joining. I have a Daikon radish here ready to go. I have all of my ingredients. Oh yeah, before I get to that, question of the day is going to be, how often do you use your microwave to cook? I know in Western cuisine we don't really use it too often, but in Japan, at least the Japanese recipes that I'm always looking at seem to always call for using the microwave. So if you want the recipe, it's already linked below in the description. I actually just posted it on my blog earlier today. You can have a look at it. It's pretty straightforward. It only takes a few minutes to prepare. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So I have all of my ingredients ready to go. I have 2 tablespoons of sake here, 3 tablespoons of shoyu or soy sauce, and a tablespoon of sugar. And I have about 4 pieces of yellowtail, also known as amberjack or buri. And we're just going to cut this up into little pieces so that it simmers and gets a lot of the flavor from the simmering sauce that we're going to put together. And the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to cut the daikon and peel it, and then we're going to throw it in the microwave to get it cooked really quickly. If you don't do it in the microwave, it'll take at least an hour. So I would recommend, if you're short on time, to do it in the microwave. Or if you want to do it the traditional way, just simmer it for at least an hour or so, and then it should be soft enough for you to pierce. And the way that you would check to see that it's done, is using a chopstick and piercing it. So if it goes right in, that means it's ready. If it doesn't go right in, it's not ready. So let me put a comment down here. Okay, so the way that you know how much to peel your daikon is if you just cut it and look at a cross section, there's going to be a little white border around the outside of the edge of the daikon, and you want to get that out. It's very fibrous, and we don't want it to be included with the daikon because it's going to hinder the cooking. And it also will hinder the amount of flavor that gets into the radish. I'm just going to cut this into 2 pieces so it's easier to handle. So you can use a vegetable peeler or you can use your knife, whichever you find easier. And after you cut it, it's optional to cut the edges of the daikon as well. There's a couple reasons you may want to do this. If you're simmering food, daikon along with other vegetables like kabocha might break off into small little pieces in your pot. And if you don't want that to happen, then what you can do is just round off the edges. It's called mentori in Japanese. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So the total amount of daikon that I'm using is roughly, I would say, a little over 6 inches worth. And my daikon is probably about 2.5 inches thick. So there's one. I'll just show you to demonstrate what I was talking about, cutting off the edges. So I'm going to cut these about 1/2 inch thick so that they cook quickly. And then we're going to cut them into half moon shapes. And that's just for looks. So what I was talking about is, you see how these edges are sharp? They're kind of at a 90-degree angle. So what you can do to prevent the edges from falling off, and also to help the daikon cook quicker, is you rotate the daikon piece and you cut it so that it's not a sharp edge anymore. It's going to be more of a rounded look. So it's not just for aesthetics. There's actually a practical reason to do this. It just takes time. As you can see, if you have a lot of daikon to cut, this will take you quite a while to get through it all. But if you get used to it, you'll be able to work quickly, and it shouldn't take too long. So I'm just going to do a few of these to demonstrate, and also to make my pictures look nice, since I think the rounded look does look better. So there's one, and then I'm just going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to do another one, And then we'll cut that one in half, and we'll cut all the other pieces in half too. So if you've never heard of this dish, Buri Daikon is actually a regional specialty from the area Toyama Bay, which is somewhat close to Kyoto in that area. And buri is, or the yellowtail slash amberjack fish is one of the products that is, what would you call it? One of their agricultural products. So there's a lot of those types of fish in that area. So if you ever get a chance to go to Toyama City in that area, Kanazawa, that is one place where you should be able to find this. All right, so these are all ready to go. I'm just cutting them into half inch or half moon shapes. And we'll just do the other piece right here. I think that should be sufficient. And a couple other things that I wanted to mention. So when you're making this dish, the traditional method is to soak the daikon in togijiru, which I went into in one of my previous live cooking episodes. That helps to keep the daikon nice and white, and it also helps to improve the flavor. So daikon can be bitter depending on the season and also the way that it's cut. But the togijiru is essentially what's used, or what you're using to rinse white rice and the starch that comes off of it. So if you've ever washed white rice, you'll notice that the water turns very white and cloudy. That's what togijiru is. And so if you were to use it, you would be cooking this daikon in the togijiru for at least an hour or so, and that helps to improve the flavor and also keep the daikon nice and white. But today, we are just going to work fast, and we're going to skip that step. Okay, so now that these are cut and ready to go, I'm just going to put them into a bowl. I have this Pyrex right here. We're going to microwave it for about 4 to 5 minutes, depending on how strong your microwave is. And we'll check for doneness by poking it with a chopstick. So I'm just going to do it for about 5 minutes. Meanwhile, we can just combine all of these ingredients here in the sauce. This is what we're going to be using to season the fish. So I'm going to put in sugar. That was a tablespoon of sugar, 2 tablespoons of sake, and then 3 tablespoons of shoyu. I'm going to turn on my little simmering pot right here. This is probably about, I think, 6 quarts. So you could also use a deep pan if you have one. For the fish, what I'm going to do now is just cut it into small pieces, maybe about an inch big. So the other thing that I guess I should mention is they don't always use the actual meat to make this dish. Sometimes, or traditionally, they use the leftovers of the fish. So everything that's left after they cut the meat off. So today we are going to indulge and actually have the meat. And the best part of using the buri meat is the belly, at least in my opinion. I love how the fatty flavor comes through. So just cut this off. So again, you can cut these however big you want, but I'm just going to do it at about 1 inch thick. So they're like 1 inch squares or rectangles, I guess. All right. So now that's ready to go. All we have to do is heat up our sauce. Get the daikon cooked. And I'm going to add in the fish after I put the sauce in. So bring this up to a simmer and let it simmer for about 15 minutes with the lid on, slightly open, and that'll help the heat to stay trapped and also to reduce the liquid just a little bit. Okay. And then you can actually garnish this with several different things. If you have kaiwara daikon, which is daikon radish sprouts, you can also use ginger. or mitsuba, which is Japanese parsley. Or if you have citrus, like lemon peel, you can cut it very thin. Um, Yuzu is probably more common in Japan. You can also use lime, I guess, lime peel strips. And it's just for looks. It adds a little bit of flavor, at least the ginger. I've seen some recipes where you can actually cook with the ginger in the sauce. So it's totally up to you if that's what you want. But today we're going to keep it pretty simple and straightforward. So just the sauce and the fish and the daikon. And I just got my rice finished, so we're going to eat all this with rice. And dinner should be ready in about 10 minutes, so not too bad. 10 or 15 minutes. 15 minutes. All right, so it sounds like it's really cooking. I'm going to take this out. And that was only about 4.5 minutes. Okay, so it's not ready yet. I'm just going to mix it up a little bit and throw it back in there. Do it a couple more minutes. Take out like a little microwave cover, you don't need that. And I'm going to serve the rice. I think my little shamoji is dirty, so I'm just going to use a spatula. Okay. I'm really hungry now, so I'm going to have a little bit of rice while we wait. I hope you don't mind. So one of the reasons that I decided to make this for today is because I may go to Toyama next month. And that's how we decided to make this dish for today. So let's see. I have a bag here of umeboshi, which is pickled plum. And that's what we're going to eat my rice with. If you've never had it before, they have several different types, like the sour kind. This is how it looks. And I actually need to put this into a canning jar, so we'll get to that later. So my sauce is about to start simmering, so I'm going to put in the fish, clear up some space here. Oops. So this cutting board, when it gets wet, it kind of morphs a little bit. I really like these boards, but not when they get wet, because when it's not flat like this, it'll shake on the counter and it's not stable. So that's why I put a white paper towel underneath, in case you were wondering. Okay, so let's see how this is doing. All right, so it's just about done. The chopstick goes in very easily. And welcome, whoever it is that just joined. Glad to see you here. I'm going to go ahead and put this into the pot right here. We're going to simmer it for about 15 minutes. And you want to make sure that all of your daikon is submerged. So again, we're cheating because we used the microwave. We didn't simmer this for over an hour, which is what the traditional method is. I don't think you can really tell the difference, at least I can't tell, so why not save time? Okay, so that is done and it's ready to simmer. So I'm going to bring it up to just a boil, just before a boil, and leave it slightly uncovered. And let's go ahead and have some rice while we wait. So, umeboshi, if you've never had it, it's the perfect way to flavor your rice. And in fact, you can even just mix it with the rice completely. It's called maze gohan. Add a little bit of shoyu or salt on top of that, and it takes your rice to a whole nother level. Hey Adam, thanks for joining. I don't know where my Instapot pressure cooker is. I actually don't have one, so I can't use an Instapot pressure cooker. But that would be a good idea. I have seen recipes that actually do use a pressure cooker to make this and other simmered recipes like nikujaga. That definitely helps to cut back on the cooking time. So yeah, I should get an Instant Pot. Is that something that you would recommend? They seem to be quite popular these days. At least I keep seeing them. Yeah. So I may consider getting an Instant Pot. I don't know. I have so many different kitchen appliances. I need to stop buying new things. That's the problem. But if it's something that you strongly recommend, then maybe I will give it a try. All right, so I'm just turning down the heat so that it's simmering. And one thing that I wanted to go over with you today was the concept of sashasue. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but sashasue is part of the Japanese alphabet. And it's also a way to remember the way that you're supposed to add ingredients when you're cooking. So sa stands for sugar, or sato in Japanese. And the reason that you would add that first is because sugar has a hard time getting absorbed into foods. So that ingredient is generally added first. So depending on what you're making, if you want to be cognizant and follow that rule, you can. Today we're just throwing everything together. So sashasue, the first ingredient is sa for sato, which is sugar. The second ingredient is shi. So shi stands for shio, which is salt in Japanese, and that's the second thing that you would add to your whatever it is that you're cooking. And the reason for that is salt brings out moisture from the food, and it also helps it to cook faster, and it also helps it to bring out the flavor of whatever it is that you're cooking. So like carrots, for example, potatoes, onions, all of those things have a lot of water inside, and so when you add salt to the mix, it brings out all of those flavors into the broth. Sashi su, so su, it stands for vinegar. Su is osu. Osu is the polite way to say it. Su is vinegar in Japanese, and that's the third thing that you would add if you were going to be using that in a dish. And the reason that you add that third is because vinegar is very delicate. And if you're going to be cooking it for a long time, you'll notice that the flavor is not as pronounced as if you were to add it at the very end. If you were going to add that at the very beginning, it'd be really hard to tell that it had vinegar in it. And you can tell right away if you add vinegar to something hot and you're standing right next to it, you might get a big whiff and it might make you like choke. I don't know if you've ever choked on vinegar, but it's not very pleasant. So that's the third thing that you would add. So sashasue. Se stands for seuyu, which is an old term for shoyu, or soy sauce in Japanese. And that would be the fourth thing that you would add. The reason why you add it at the end or towards the end is because it has a strong flavor. Depending on the soy sauce that you're using, there's a couple types. There's actually many types, but the most common is usukuchi shoyu and then regular shoyu or dark shoyu. Usukuchi shoyu is a lighter color. It's also a little bit saltier. And if you're worried about the appearance of your food, or if you're trying to go for a different flavor profile, you might use usukuchi shoyu, which is lighter. It's a very, I guess it looks more of a light brown instead of a black color compared to regular shoyu. So that would be the fourth thing that you would add. So sashasue so. So stands for miso. So it's the last syllable, I guess, is it a syllable? It's the last two letters of miso paste. And that also has a very strong flavor, and that's why you would save it towards the end. So like when we're making miso soup, we don't ever want to boil miso paste or the miso soup because all of those delicate flavors and aromas will be lost. So that's why when you add miso paste to miso soup, when you're making it, you always do so after turning off the heat and just stirring it in. And so that's another reason why if you go to a Japanese restaurant, they serve you your miso soup covered. So you preserve all of those delicious aromas and flavors. So that's my little cultural, I guess, lesson for today is sashasue so. Um, I don't know how many of you have heard of that before, if you practice it in your cooking, but it's something to keep in mind. There is a reason why these sayings exist. I think there is some truth to them, and I hope to pass that on to you. So with that, we have a few more minutes cooking the Buri Daikon. So I need to find some ginger. We're gonna turn it into little matchsticks. Actually, I'm just gonna grab some mitsuba, which I have growing in my arrow garden, so I'll be right back. Okay, so I just pulled a large leaf out of my arrow garden. I have it growing by the window, and we're just going to do a simple garnish today. You can also use lemon, like I mentioned before. I have some lemon here, or ginger, depending on what you want to eat it with. And it's just a garnish. If you want to make your Buri Daikon a little bit more flavorful, like I said before, you can cook it with the ginger, or you can put a bunch of little matchstick pieces of ginger on top of it. So yeah, Adam, good question. You know, I've never tried to make my own miso paste, and the reason for that, I would totally do it, and maybe I will do it later this year, is that it takes a long, long time to get your miso to an edible condition. I think in general it takes at least a year, is what I have heard and seen. I haven't really done too much research on it. At the earliest, I think you can probably use it at 6 months, but I think a year is what's most common in Japan. And yeah, I think homemade miso may be my next step, but some of the other things I was going to be working on this year was going to be tofu and noodle making. So I've been making tofu on and off for the past couple of years. It takes a lot of work. That's why I don't do it as much as I'd like to. But that's one thing that I'll be working on, and you'll definitely be seeing some of my videos in the next few months for those. And then same with noodles. Handmade udon is very simple to make. It's just flour and water. But soba is a little bit harder. You need the buckwheat flour and the water, and you want to get that right texture for soba. Dried soba works just fine, but I don't know. There's something about making the noodles with your hands that it seems to taste a lot better after you work so hard to create something. So yeah, miso paste, that could be something I do later this year. Do you have a recipe or any experience that you'd like to add on that? This is some oolong tea that I made. I'm gonna grab a plate. So 7 minutes left. Buri Daikon actually goes really well with beer and rice. And it's actually one of the most popular winter dishes in Japan. Daikon is a winter vegetable, and simmering, nimono, which we're making right now, is also one of the popular cooking methods during the winter time. So I'm just gonna have a peek here. You can see that because the yellowtail has a lot of fat, that the aku is called it's like the bitter unwanted stuff that you usually you scoop out with a little, what do you call it, the little strainer. I forgot the term in Japanese, but you're supposed to take it out like when you're making beef dishes or fish dishes with a lot of fat. And the reason is that it doesn't taste good, supposedly. So it's personal preference. I leave it in for the most of the time, just because I personally can't taste the difference, but maybe some people can. So I'm just turning the daikon pieces over and making sure that all of them are simmering in the broth. You can see that they've already turned a nice gold color thanks to the soy sauce that we're using. And the flavor or the smell of this tastes just like I remember. So my favorite part about this dish is the daikon because it doesn't have so much flavor on its own, but it soaks up all of the flavor that's in the sauce that we're making. And yes, everything does taste better with beer. And I think the reason for that is because alcohol cleanses the palate. So that's why wine goes so good with food, is because you're always, with each sip of wine that you're taking or whatever beer, it cleanses the palate in between each bite. So it's like starting fresh. And yes, Japan, I leave in just about 4 weeks from today, so I cannot wait. I need to get my plan set, trying to decide on the restaurants. I actually called a couple nights ago. I called 5 of my top choice restaurants in Kyoto, and all of them are completely booked. So I don't know, I think it's just bad timing. Maybe I waited too long, but I was not able to get my top 5 choices in Kyoto, so now I need to figure out a backup plan and then also work on my reservations for Osaka and Tokyo. The problem being, I'm going to be there during Golden Week, which is a holiday period in Japan, so a lot of people are traveling, and some of the restaurants might even be closed, I'm not sure. So wish me luck. Hopefully, I know I will be able to eat good food. I just don't know that I'm going to be able to get into those fine dining establishments that I wanted to eat at. So I'll let you guys know how that turns out. Okay, so it's been just about 10 minutes now. I'm going to go ahead and have a small taste. I think the daikon is looking good. Oh yeah. So you can tell, I don't know how well you can see on the camera, but it's a little bit white on the inside, but in terms of being cooked, it's done because I was able to bite right through it. So if you really want the flavor to get into the daikon, aside from cooking it longer, you can also score it with a knife. If you score it in like a plus sign, that helps the flavors to get into the daikon as well. So that was essentially my cooking lesson on Buri Daikon. So, looks like somebody else joined. Whoever you are, welcome to my cooking show. Today is episode 10. I can't believe I already did 10 straight weeks in a row. Kind of surprised myself. I didn't really know how it was going to turn out, but here we are, episode 10. So I think next week, not really sure what I'm going to be doing yet. I was thinking about doing kare rice from scratch. Something else that is also tasty during the winter and very comforting. Yes, Adam, I agree. 7-Eleven is a fine dining establishment, at least compared to the 7-Elevens that we have here. 7-Eleven in Japan definitely is a few steps above in terms of quality. But I don't know if I'm going to be eating at 7-Eleven this time. I did eat there quite a bit when I was a student, when I was studying abroad over there, but I don't think I ate there the last couple times. I do go there for drinks, though. I'll get some bottled tea. I think that's usually what I get there. But I appreciate your recommendation. So yeah. All right, let me go ahead and serve this so you can see what it looks like on a plate. And where did I put my plate? Oh, here it is. So you want to serve this with the sauce, since there's a lot of it. So this is enough for about four to five people, I would say, if you eat a lot. Hey, Barrick. Nice to have you here. I actually have not made a video yet on katsukare, but I have a video on chicken katsu, which is like tonkatsu but with chicken, and also katsudon, which is a, I guess you would call it like a rice bowl with katsu on top and a little bit of egg. I actually have those in line to be released. I was planning on releasing those while I was traveling in Japan since I'm not going to be able to cook live for the first couple weeks at least. And katsukare is super easy to make. So all you need to do is make the katsu, and then you just add some curry sauce to that, or the kare, and that could actually be something I could do next week if I make kare. So thanks for the suggestion. All right. So here's how it looks. It's very light brown. It's more of a tan than a brown, I would say. I'm just going to put on some sauce now. And so here's how it looks with the sauce. Sauce is the part that makes everything taste good. And the daikon just soaks it all up like a sponge. And so here's my garnish. This is mitsuba, Japanese parsley. You can use ginger, you can use citrus peel, like lime or lemon, whatever it is that you can find. And just gonna have this with a little white rice and some umeboshi and my oolong tea. So this is my dinner for today, weeknight cooking. I hope that I demonstrated how easy this is to make. So we started just about 30 minutes ago and dinner is ready. So thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. And I hope to see you again next week. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so below. I have my recipe posted as well as the other live videos that I've created and been working on the past 10 weeks. So those are down there if you want to look at them. And if you have any other suggestions as well, any idea requests or recipe requests, I mean, let me know. I'd be happy to entertain you and create something like that that you would want to eat. But other than that, yeah, I will enjoy my dinner. I am very hungry. And thank you again for joining, and I'll see you next time. All right.